So welcome back to another Young Blooms tutorial on YouTube. Really lovely to have you along. We are going to do something slightly different today. As you'll have seen on my, if you follow and you subscribe to the channel, you'll see there's a fair bit of macrame floral macrame, whatever you want to call it, on the channel. I found this interest during the start of lockdown, I think, but today I want to carry that on, and I guess macrame is part of it, but I want to make a kokedama. So it's essentially, you can see here I'm flinging a spider plant at you. I have a spider plant that I'm going to make a kokedama around. So it's essentially a moss ball with a bit of compost and also some peat moss packed around it, and it just creates something where you don't need a pot, basically. It's quite cool. So I've done some research and got all the necessary bits, and essentially to start you need 2 parts of normal compost. So I'm just going to put 2 piles of, maybe 3 actually, because this one's, yeah. So I'm going to do 3 of normal compost, 3 handfuls, and I've got here some peat moss. Do 3 of peat moss. So peat moss is just finer. So I have, this is half normal compost and half peat moss. And I am simply going to pour some water in here. I'm kind of judging it by eye. And what you want to do, this is quite messy, but what you want to do is sort of mix it up, and essentially you're starting to make a ball. So if you need to add some more water, do it slowly and just see how it goes. The first one of these I made was absolutely sodden, and you end up squeezing the water out of it. But you want enough water for the whole thing to hold together, essentially. There we go. And you can see I'm making this ball. It's quite mad, really. It's quite feels a bit like you're back at primary school playing with mud, but it's kind of fun. So it begins to hold together. Just keep adding bits. Okay, so I have here essentially one compost ball. There you go. And when I was doing some research about this, I didn't believe that this would hold together. They just made it look really easy, but actually the water just holds, helps hold the shape. So that's the ball, and essentially you should be able to throw it up in the air, it land back in your hands and not fall apart. That's the test that you need to try. I'm not going to do it here because you won't be able to see it. But you need to make that ball. So we have that, and we now have our spider plant. So this was I bought just at a garden centre, and there was 2 plants, sort of two plants in one pot, so I split them, and this is the slightly larger one. I've knocked all the compost off, so you can kind of just see the roots, and that's what we're going to put inside of this moss ball. So probably, yeah, that is pretty much all compost. So essentially with this thing you should be able to, no, there we go, look at that, split it in 2. It's quite incredible. So you have to kind of be quite gentle with it. This one seems a bit more fragile. And then what you do is you lay your plant in the middle, sort of fold it back up again. And this part I found quite tricky to keep it intact. So I think it's okay to kind of, you know, add the moss back on, pat it into place. There we go. Because, I mean, the plant's going to be an odd shape anyway. It's not going to fit perfectly in the ball. There we go. So you've got that ball around the plant. And then you need your moss. So the next two things you're going to need are moss. I have a sheet of it here, and also string. So this is what we're going to wrap now around the plant to hold everything in place. So this is where you probably need about 3 hands. But a bit of perseverance. And again with the moss, I tended to sort of, you know, I tended to sort of add bits in, but this is a good nice sheet of it. So I can kind of fold it up and wrap it, essentially like a little moss parcel. I'm just going to rip a bit off here because there's too much. But there we go. So hopefully you can see now the moss ball around the plant. How cool is that? Okay, so I ripped a bit off the side here because there was too much moss. But I've created that ball. So then you take your string and you just need to get the first one tied. Get yourself started on this. I started around the middle of the ball. I didn't want to choke the plant itself. So just tie it kind of... I think it needs to be quite tight. So try and get a tight, good tight knot to start you off. And then you're essentially wrapping the whole thing in string. Just going round and round and round. It's like a little string parcel. I don't think there's any great sort of place you should start or feel like, you know. Oops. I think you just need to get it covered. Make sure there's no sections that aren't sort of tied in with the string. There we go. Right. So that's fairly well covered in string. I feel like there's no great sections, maybe here. She says merrily. And then you just need to get some scissors and chop it off. And all I do is just tie it into another piece of string. So just tying a knot. Okay. Chop it off. And there we have it. So, there we have one kokedama. I'm going to hang it on the wall so you can see the full thing, because all that you can see at the moment is the moss ball and it's not very exciting. So I will get it hung up in a hanger and then you can get the full effect. So here we have it. The hanger in all its glory and the kokedama encasing this spider plant. So you can kind of see the moss, and that essentially just has encased all the roots. And I think with watering, it's just a case of taking it out, taking the ball out, plant and everything, sticking it in a bowl of water, giving it a bit of a soak, and then let it drain and hang it back up. And you're doing that as many times as the plant needs it. So spider plants, I don't think they don't like being overwatered. So maybe once every couple of days, maybe 3-4 days, I'm not entirely sure. But just to give you the effect, it's pretty cool. So, hope you've enjoyed this, and look forward to seeing you next time.